aftv transfer news update day. Couple of days before the Premier League starts, Ezri Konsa, Arsenal closing on a deal. Nwaneri, we know he was going to leave, but it's come out that Arsenal are trying to send him on loan. They don't want to lose the 90-year-old permanently, which is just all I wanted to hear. Get him a good Premier League loan, let Ethan grow. He's a player, the player midfielders in our team are aged well, the Odegaards, Marinos, such like. There'll be space for him probably next season or a year or two. So positive. I'm going to react to that news. I'm going to give my thoughts. Obviously, Ezri Konsa, seems like this is a deal that Arsenal are closing in on, what the price will be, give my thoughts on the player, obviously why it's a smart deal to do, as I've been speaking about the last couple of weeks. And then obviously with the transfer window coming to a close, there are going to be things, there's going to be movements, from a lot of teams, a lot of domino effect. I said this yesterday, and I think we're going to start seeing a lot of this today. So make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. As I said to you guys yesterday, about 82% of you guys watching my videos aren't subscribed to the channel. Really appreciate all you guys tuning in. Make sure you're hitting the like button, but make sure you guys are subscribing so that you can see all my latest content. And yeah, comment down below your thoughts on what I'm about to say. So let's start off with what started off the day, which was the Ornstein bomber. He's been dropping a few. I think he dropped that United are closing in on Odon Baleba, which will be very, very good for them, and will change up my predictions. Obviously, I will be dropping a predictions video, but he dropped the Arsenal news, and it goes as follows. He says, Arsenal are closing in on a deal to sign Ezri Konsa from Aston Villa. The 28-year-old defender, high on Arsenal's target list all summer. Work now advancing with Aston Villa to finalise after dialogue at ownership level to reduce valuation gap for the international. So obviously I'll get into a few others. Obviously Sammy Mokbel says Arsenal, where was it? He says Arsenal have advanced talks with Aston Villa over number one defensive target Ezri Konsa. Talks between clubs revived last week. Deal expected to happen. Konsa wants to join. Sam Dean at the Telegraph also says Arsenal have stepped up the interest in Aston Villa with the defender Ezri Konsa and are growing increasingly confident of reaching agreement. So all the big tier one journalists, obviously February, so I don't think he's dropped anything, but it doesn't really matter, have spoken about this. And obviously Arsenal nearing a deal. As I said yesterday, Arsenal were interested in him all summer. They bid about 30 million, I think that was the case, and Villa valued him about 60 million, which is kind of crazy. As again, for a 29-year-old, only about 2 years left on his deal, isn't necessarily the top level. And obviously you have to think about, there's not much resale value for Arsenal to invest at that level, but obviously it seems that they were nearing a deal. If there seems to be, as David Ornstein said, a reduction in the valuation from ownership level in Aston Villa side. So maybe what we're seeing, maybe a 45 plus 5, maybe 50 million. It's 50 million even for me is still a lot, very expensive. But for a player that could cover both at right back, at centre back, England international, very experienced in the Premier League, played multiple years here. He's a good player, very, very good on the ball as well. Premier League experience of Arsenal trying to retain the league this season, win now. Obviously, we have a player like Marley Salmon who looks very, very accustomed for the future, amongst other players like Mascara, and we still got a young, centre back pairing, Saliba, Calafiori, Timber. So, there's still a lot of players there for the future. Buying an experienced player is not necessarily bad, because he brings in one experience. Being a veteran, being one of the oldest players in the squad. 2, brings that Premier League experience, so he doesn't have to adapt if Arsenal need him to start multiple games, which they would. It probably also means, as I said, Saliba's injury is probably worse than expected, and he might be out for a long period of time. Arsenal don't want to put a time scale on that or have to force him back, which is smart. It also covers Gabriel not having to play him every game, because you can play Konsa and Mascara left centre back, or Konsa and Nkapie, and still feel like that's a good pairing. So it's a good signing. We'll see what the price is, but whatever the price is, Arsenal are getting their man. Obviously been reported that this has been our number one central defensive target to add. Obviously also I've spoken that I wanted potentially a right back to come in, and we could shift Timber and Ben White, but with Timber's injury history, Ben White's injury history, you can't even rely on them necessarily to stay fit, and probably is a hard position to find that can to fit players that can play in that position. Ben White looks like he's returning to fitness. Obviously he looks himself. Obviously we're not going to get carried away. He probably has lost a physical level, but he will be there. And when Timber returns in a couple of weeks, as Mikel says, that ramps up the defensive coverage now that we get Konsa in. So that's a very, very good deal. I'm very happy about that. Obviously we'll profile the player a lot more when the signing gets confirmed. Give his strengths, his weaknesses, talk about how he's going to fit in the team, what pairings might make more sense. Obviously I'd prefer him to play more centre back than right back, but I'm pretty sure Mikel will have multiple usage of him, and obviously as he does with multiple players, he likes players that play in multiple positions. So good deal from Arsenal. obviously just to buffen up that defense and make sure that we don't have any risk. An injury to Mascara, I know a lot of people didn't want to sign a centre back, but an injury to Mascara now leaves you with potentially having to play a left-footed player, two left-footed players in centre back, or try and risk assignment at a young age in the Premier League title defence season that Arsenal have in their history never done. So understandable. Obviously moving on, with Ethan Nwaneri, positive news. Sammy Mokbel dropped another article obviously saying Arsenal decide to prioritise loan offers for Ethan Nwaneri ahead of transfer deadline. Acknowledgement teenager can leave to play regular football, but club want to avoid using the 19-year-old permanently. Perfect. When it came out after the Community Shield lineup that he's not in the squad and he's going to leave, after people got carried away saying he's going to leave on a permanent, and obviously pure profit. It's understandable that Arsenal want to make sales, as it's been reported, and obviously I will get into that as well, as there was an interesting report. But also you also look at it like Ethan needs to play football. Arsenal haven't made that much sales. Obviously Trossard, Norgard are the only real notable sales. I know Kivio comes under that as well, but we need to make some money, and Ethan would line up as pure profit, so I don't know how that aligns in the money making, the numbers, but it helps, right? But I think at the same time, he haven't maximised his value. He went on loan last season, didn't really play. It helped him, grow as a man. I could see that in pre-season, that he looked like he had a bit more jewels about him, a bit more physical about him. He looks older, more mature. Let him go to a good team now, play. If Arsenal were really looking to sell, which I hope they're not, but let's say they were, it would be better for him to have a loan season, potentially get 30, to 35 games, under his belt, a lot of starts, a good experience, hopefully at a high level, maybe in the Premier League, and then now that increases his value because he's now played at a high level for in a good team. And then if Arsenal want to sell him now, they can actually set a good price because they have a season to back that up with the potential and the talent and everything else. But I don't even want him to get sold. I just want him to get a season where he can play football, he develops, he's not just on the bench and being an option. I know a lot of people want to keep players, but in the position that he plays, if he's going to play right wing, we have Madueke, we have Saka, we have Diamond, who seems to be ahead of the curve in terms of him, and he's probably more of a natural wideman than how Ethan is. And people argue about Madueke getting signed, but he's here, he's on high wages, he's a senior player, so it is what it is. And then in terms of the centre mid position, you got Odegaard, you got Eze in there, and then if you have Ethan, he's still third in line, so there's no position that he's going to be at least second in line, so it doesn't make sense for him to stay to hope for an injury to happen. And obviously you also got Marino in those 10 positions, so it's better for us to let him go. Hopefully he gets a nice Premier League loan. If I'm looking at teams, hopefully we're not a relegation team, but those like Fulhams, your Bournemouths, if they would take a punt on him, I know they're in Europe, a Crystal Palace maybe, like I know they're in Europe as well, like a team like that I'm looking at teams that don't have that much depth, so that he can go in. I think Ethan's probably a bit better than most of the players there in attacking sense, and can go in there and really establish himself as a Premier League player. Come back next season, we'll see what happens with the likes of Odegaard, Marino, Zubimendi. I think the space will open up for him, and obviously the same thing with Madueke as well. So all positive there. Obviously it just leaves what attacker are Arsenal gonna get, obviously. And in that conversation we have to go to the article that came out from The Athletic, talking about the Gabriel Martinelli situation, which obviously was very, very sad to see. It said that, obviously just reading the title from Gunnerblog, it said Arsenal are perfectly entitled to try and sell Gabriel Martinelli, but after several good years of service, Martinelli is entitled to expect some transparency from Arsenal too. Long story short, within the article, it talked about how apparently Martinelli didn't know that he wasn't like approached with like we want to sell you this summer, or obviously, or we're going to be exploring deals for you this summer, and obviously we're not going to force you out. Obviously if there's no deals that's valuable for you or what you want, we're not going to make it happen, but obviously just letting you know. Apparently that didn't even happen, and that's given me for Andre Burr, because Arsenal don't normally do that. Arsenal are a team that will run down players' contracts, we don't even force guys out because clearly they're too nice. So that's a change, and maybe it's a change that maybe Arsenal want to try and make sales, but it's not just by force. You don't just go to two ends of the extremes, and it really makes me feel some type of way, because it's not just for a player like Martinelli, who's been part of our team, who's was signed from the 4th tier of the Brazilian league, has been there from the start, the grind, the 8th place finishes, was one of the sparks with Saka, with Smith Rowe, with Odegaard, and the likes of those players that to help us rise. And yes, his potential hasn't, he's plateaued, maybe even regressed at some point, but it doesn't mean that you have to disrespect the man. And it's the same thing for even players like your Reece Nelsons, your Jesuses, maybe last year your Kiviors and your Lokongas and your Tavares, anyone that's been part of our squad. You've got to have a level of class about how you operate, and it doesn't really make me feel good. But I hope that if Martinelli does go, he does go to a team that he wants to go, that he can really progress, because he can play for any of the top teams for me in Europe, and definitely in the top league. And then 2, we get a good value for him. But if he does go, what player do Arsenal want to sign? Obviously, as I said yesterday, Yildiz has been a name that's been, floated around a lot. Recently, rebuffed again. Obviously, it was reported from the Athletic early that Arsenal are interested in, but obviously Juve didn't want to sell, and then we haven't really heard news about that. Arsenal interested in Rodgers, Arsenal is interested in Barcola, Arsenal interested in Vinicius Junior in that pursuit. But now obviously it's Yildiz and obviously Barcola as well. I'm not really too finished with that, because obviously I know Liverpool don't want to pay the price PSG was saying earlier on, 140 million, and rightfully so. Even 100 million is expensive and they can wait, but Arsenal can also swoop in if the price goes down. Could they go agree personal terms and kind of go, if that's a deal that can be done? Obviously, if they get the Konsa deal now, all focus will be on, I guess, outgoings. Obviously, Ethan finding him a good club. Jesus, obviously, I assume will go to Napoli, but obviously he's also on Barcelona's list, which is interesting. Obviously, Barcelona, they can't get Alavarez, which is looking, obviously, just peak gets to save that deal. Then what they're going to do, obviously, there's Gokres on their list, apparently Jesus, apparently even Havertz, but Havertz won't go. Obviously, Lautaro Martinez, Luis Suarez from Sporting, so a couple of players there. They need to get a 9, so they'll probably get a player. Jesus will bang in Barcelona, by the way, just to let you guys know that. Jesus, Lamine Yamal, all those players, my goodness me. But with Martinelli, you know what I'm saying, he can go to many clubs. If Juve was to lose Yildiz, Martinelli could go there. Bayern Munich, that could be an option for them. There's a lot of clubs that I think he can go to, and even in the Premier League. Not that I would want to see him play for a rival, but could he? And then does that open up the space? Again, I'm going to keep throwing this name. Don't be surprised if Rafael Leao, if Barcola ends up going to Liverpool, Yildiz is off the target, and Martinelli still goes. If Arsenal find a good deal for him, because I feel like if they can't find a good deal for Martinelli, like in terms of value, don't sell him. But value and the club he wants to go to, don't sell him. Like I think he'll still be valuable with the way the system's looking. Bruno Guimaraes is potentially playing left 8, Lewis Skelly, Calafiori behind Lewis Skelly as well. There's a lot of creativity in there. And if Havertz plays in the 9 as well, so let's see. And obviously the Julian Alvarez pursuit, is it still alive? Obviously with Atletico coming out every day saying he's not for sale, but then obviously Julian Alvarez, people saying that there's going to be, so it's messy, let's just say that. And obviously we have about 13 days of the window left. Things evolved quickly, which I mean, we'll see that with a lot of teams, so let's see what happens. But again, to summarize, Ezri Konsa I think will be a good deal. Hopefully it's about 45 million, maybe 5 million add-ons, but we'll see what the price is. I'm expecting probably 50 million. And then with Ethan Nwaneri not leaving on a permanent, Arsenal know he's one for the future, and definitely is one of the best talents in the world. Let's get him a good loan, probably a Premier League loan. If they can't get a good abroad loan, but a good Premier League loan, can go to many teams, and then we see him grow, and then focus on the attacker. So comment down below what you guys think about what I've said of Ezri Konsa, Nwaneri. What attacker do you think Arsenal will be in for? Make sure you guys like the video. As I said, subscribe to the channel, and I'm out. Peace.